Isaiah, how could you steal from the benevolence fund after everything this church has done for you?
The evidence is clear. Isaiah must answer for his sins against this congregation.
Sign these papers by the end of the day. This is non-negotiable. You can't force...
At my sister Evelyn's welcome home luncheon, my daughter-in-law took the church microphone and accused me of stealing $38,640 from a woman who was still learning how to hold a fork again. The fellowship hall went quiet. Celeste stood beside Evelyn's cake in a cream-colored suit. She said I had interfered with Evelyn's home care, blocked payments meant for nurses and therapists, and used my medical knowledge to take advantage of my own sister. Before I could answer, my son Marcus placed a document beside my plate. "Sign this, Dad," he said. "Then, we can keep this inside the family." The first page called me a clinical consultant for Bright Harbor Home Health. It said I had reviewed patient records and accepted responsibility for care decisions beginning 14 months earlier. I had never held that job. Marcus lowered his voice, but the front tables could still hear him. "If you refuse, we will have to report what happened to Adult Protective Services." I studied the signature line. Then I looked at the file date printed at the bottom. The agreement they claimed had existed for 14 months had been created that morning. "What exactly am I confirming?" I asked. Celeste answered before Marcus could. "You are confirming the work you already did." 3 days earlier, a nurse reviewing the possible sale of Bright Harbor had called me with a different question. She wanted to know why my name appeared on 14 patient files from a company I had not worked for in more than 2 years. I had already answered her in writing. The buyer expected proof of my relationship with Bright Harbor by 9 o'clock Monday morning. Celeste and Marcus did not know that yet. They did not know Evelyn had given me permission to examine every page in her care file. They believed one real signature, collected under the eyes of my sister, my pastor, and half the congregation, could repair more than a year of records before anyone asked where those records came from. Have you ever had a relative use a crowded room to make you agree before you had time to read or think? Tell me in the comments. That pressure only works when silence feels more dangerous than the paper in front of you. My family thought they had placed evidence against me beside my plate. What they had actually placed there was the first document showing why they needed my name before Monday morning. My name is Isaiah Mercer. I was 63 years old, and I had spent most of my working life caring for older people across Durham and the towns around it. When I entered nursing in the early 80s, I was often the only black man on the floor and the last person a family expected to be the nurse. I began as a home health nurse, became a nurse practitioner, and finished my full-time career reviewing care delivered in people's homes. A clinical record is not only a description of what happened, it tells you who saw the patient, who made the decision, and who accepted responsibility for it. A signature is not a decoration at the bottom of a page. It is a promise that a real person stood behind a real decision. The paper beside my plate bothered me more than Celeste's accusation. Marcus had used yellow legal pads for every major financial decision since buying his first house. After my wife Lillian died 6 years earlier, Marcus came to my house every evening for 2 weeks. He brought groceries I had not asked for and sat in the kitchen even when neither of us had much to say. For a while, grief made us honest with each other. Then Bright Harbor began growing, and every conversation became about a deadline, a payroll problem, or the next expansion. I had missed too many of Marcus's school nights when he was young because I was working late shifts. Part of me still believed I owed him extra patience for every chair I had left empty. Back in the fellowship hall, Celeste still held the microphone. People who had known me since I was a young nurse began studying their plates. Others watched Evelyn as if they were waiting to see whether she understood what had just been said about her. She understood. Her speech had slowed after the stroke, but her mind had not. Marcus stood between me and the aisle, one hand on the document and one on an empty chair. He expected me to remain seated. I turned the first page again. The number Celeste had announced was there, but it was not listed as money removed from Evelyn's account. It appeared beside the words claims under review. $38,640. Marcus saw where I was looking. He placed his palm over that line and turned the page face down. "The details are not the point," he said. The details are almost always the point when somebody is asking for your signature. I thought then of something Lillian once told me when Marcus was 9. He had broken a window with a baseball and hidden the ball behind the washing machine. I found it first and almost put it away before she saw. Lillian stopped me. Helping a child avoid the truth does not make him safer, she said. It only makes the next truth more expensive. I had remembered the sentence for years. I had not always lived by it. The first warning had arrived on the 22nd of September. Evelyn was home by then, but she tired easily. She sat at her dining table with a Medicare notice spread beneath her left hand. Her right hand rested in a soft brace. She tapped 2 dates with one finger. "Why?" she asked slowly. "So many visits." I sat across from her and read the page. At first, I assumed the agency had corrected a billing date or resubmitted a service. Those things happen. A strange claim is a reason to ask a question. It is not a verdict. Evelyn tapped the dates again. I was not home. One date fell during her stay at the rehabilitation facility. The other listed a home visit on a morning she had attended a memorial service at New Covenant. With Evelyn's permission, I requested her plan of care, visit notes, and related records. She signed the release herself. Before she handed it to me, she held the paper against the table. "Do not speak for me," she said, "even if I need time." I promised. Then I went home and placed 3 things on my kitchen table: Evelyn's Medicare notice, her blue rehabilitation goal card, my brown pocket calendar. I had carried calendars like that since my first year in home health. Electronic systems changed. My habit did not. The agency's record said I had evaluated Evelyn at her home on the 6th of August. My calendar said I had been at the community clinic from 7:40 that morning until 1:15 that afternoon. Evelyn's rehabilitation records showed she had never left the facility that day. One page claimed 3 people had been in one place. 2 records and 1 living woman said otherwise. I called Celeste the next morning and asked to meet at Bright Harbor. Her office sat above a pharmacy, beneath a plaque, thanking Bright Harbor for serving families with dignity. Celeste closed the conference room door behind us. I placed Evelyn's care plan on the table. "Why is my name on this?" She did not look surprised. "It is a documentation gap," she said. "You helped establish our clinical program. Somebody carried your consultant information forward. I reviewed fall prevention policies for 90 days. That work shaped our standards. That is not the same as evaluating my sister." Celeste folded her hands. She said Evelyn had needed real care, and Bright Harbor had provided it. She said she would correct any wrong dates or titles and asked me to keep the matter inside the family. "How many records carry my name?" "I do not know." She answered too quickly. At home, I opened the email folder from my consulting work. Bright Harbor hired me in March of 2023. The agreement ended in May. My duties were narrow. I reviewed fall prevention policies and taught 2 staff sessions. I did not examine patients, sign orders, or certify care. The final email was still there. "Please remove my name, license information, and signature from all active materials after the agreement ends." Celeste had replied that she understood. That evening, Marcus called. "Dad, Celeste told me you came by. I asked why my name is on Evelyn's record." "It is paperwork." "How many records?" He exhaled. "Bright Harbor employs 24 people. We are close to a sale that protects those jobs. Please do not turn one mistake into a disaster." "How many records, Marcus?" "You know how systems copy information." That was not my question. He asked for 2 days. Before hanging up, he said, "You taught me not to let one error destroy a family." He was speaking about consequences instead of truth. I remembered when Celeste first asked for my scanned signature. Bright Harbor was new. She said a credentialing packet had corrupted the signature page and asked for a clean image to finish that one submission. I sent it. In my pocket calendar, I had written, "Sent signature file to Celeste for credentialing packet only." 2 years later, the word only looked like a warning I had ignored. Other moments returned. A former nurse once said managers wanted notes completed more than a week after visits. Celeste called it a training problem. Marcus once asked whether a consultant could review a chart without meeting the patient. I told him a quality review could not be turned into a clinical evaluation. Celeste later asked to keep my signature file. I told her no. I had answered every question. I had never asked why the questions kept returning. The second day passed without an explanation. That evening, my granddaughter Nia texted me. "Granddad, were you working for Mom last summer?" "No," I wrote. "Can I show you something without standing in front of everybody?" We met the next morning. Nia placed her cracked green phone on the table and showed me photographs of the paper schedules showing which worker was assigned to each home. She had taken them because the office scanner jammed, and she needed a record while entering mileage. One photograph covered the week Evelyn came home from rehabilitation. 2 visits listed in Evelyn's care record did not appear on the schedule Nia had photographed. The image timestamp came before either note was entered. "I do not know what the billing means," Nia said. "I know those visits were not there when I scanned the page. Who can add visits later?" "Mom." "The clinical manager." "Sometimes, Dad. If it affects payroll." I told her to keep the original photographs and not confront her parents. Then, I called Marcus. "This is your chance to correct the record. My name comes off every document I did not authorize. Nothing gets deleted or rewritten. You tell me the full scope before noon in 2 days. I need to talk to Celeste. You needed to talk to me before my name appeared." Marcus did not call at all. I contacted Dana Hollis, a healthcare compliance attorney. She drew 3 columns on a yellow legal pad. Observed. Documented. Inferred. "Keep those separate," she said. "Do not prove more than the record proves. Preserve it, report it, and leave the verdict to people with authority." We copied the records Evelyn had authorized me to review. Dana sealed each set in a numbered envelope. She told me not to enter Bright Harbor's systems, contact other patients, or ask Nia for more material. The next afternoon, Janice Park called. She was reviewing Bright Harbor for a potential buyer. "Did you serve as a clinical consultant during the previous 14 months?" "No." "Did you sign patient certifications?" "No." A long pause followed. "Mr. Mercer, your name appears in 14 files from our sample." That was when Evelyn's record stopped looking like one bad page. It became the first page I had been allowed to see. Back in the fellowship hall, Celeste was speaking as if the accusation had become a fact. She told the room that Bright Harbor had provided care while I interfered. She said the missing $38,640 had forced her company to delay payroll and reduce Evelyn's visits. I pushed my chair back. Evelyn touched my wrist. It was the same hand that had struggled to hold a spoon 2 months earlier. Her grip was light, but the instruction was clear. "Wait." She raised her left hand toward Pastor Amos. "Microphone," she said. Celeste turned toward her with the smile people use when they have already decided how much another person understands. "Evelyn, you do not need to manage this right now." Evelyn looked at her. "Do not answer for me." Pastor Amos crossed the room and placed the microphone in her hand. He waited while she adjusted her grip. Evelyn took one breath. "Isaiah does not control my money," she said. "He cannot write checks. He cannot withdraw funds. He cannot approve payment." Each sentence came slowly. None needed correction. She explained that her account was managed through her bank, with bills reviewed by an independent money manager appointed to review her payments after the stroke. Isaiah had no password, debit card, or authority over the account. "I gave him permission," she continued, "to read my care records. I asked him to find out why the dates were wrong." Celeste stepped closer. "What Evelyn means is that Isaiah inserted himself after the claims were questioned." Evelyn turned her head. "What I mean is what I said." Someone behind me whispered that Evelyn sounded stronger than expected. That bothered me almost as much as the accusation. Her speech was slower. Her judgment had not disappeared. I picked up the page Marcus had turned face down. "The number Celeste announced is printed here," I said. "It is not listed as money taken from Evelyn." Marcus reached for the paper. I moved it beyond his hand. The heading read Claims Under Review. Bright Harbor had requested $38,640 for services connected to Evelyn's care. Some had been paid. Some had been held. Some were being questioned because the dates, locations, and signatures did not agree. Celeste had taken the amount her company wanted paid and described it as money I had stolen. No bank statement showed a withdrawal. No account listed me as an authorized user. No transfer led to me. The accusation depended on the room never seeing the heading above the number. Marcus looked toward Celeste. Those claims represent care Aunt Evelyn needed. Need is not the same as delivery, I said. I asked Evelyn whether I could show the blue card. She nodded. The card had been given to her when she left rehabilitation. On the front were 3 goals. On the back, Evelyn required every person who helped with therapy to sign a name and record a time. She had managed choir rehearsals for 30 years. She trusted written attendance more than a vague promise that somebody had stopped by. Bright Harbor's file recorded a nursing visit at Evelyn's home on the 6th of August. On that date, Evelyn was still admitted to inpatient rehabilitation. The same file said I evaluated her in her living room that morning. My calendar showed I was seeing patients across town. The clinic's sign and log confirmed it. A second note recorded a therapy visit at Evelyn's house during a memorial service at New Covenant. Evelyn appeared in the church program, seated in the front row. A third note listed a home visit on an afternoon when her doorbell camera showed no one entering the house. Celeste said dates sometimes changed when clinicians corrected documentation. That can explain a late entry, I said. It cannot move a patient from a rehabilitation bed into her living room. Evelyn lifted the blue card. No signature, she said. The spaces for the disputed visits were empty. The room no longer had to decide whether it trusted me more than Celeste. It had to decide whether a patient could receive care in a house where she was not present. And if those visits had not happened as written, somebody still had to explain who created the record, who used my name, and why my family needed my signature before Monday morning. Celeste did not deny the dates. She lowered the microphone and spoke to the room, as if she were explaining a difficult policy to worried families. Home health records are corrected all the time, she said. A nurse may enter a visit late. A therapist may coordinate by telephone. Isaiah knows that. I know the difference between a late note and a visit that could not happen. This is a documentation gap, not missing care. There it was again, the same phrase she had used in her office before anyone mentioned an old consulting agreement. Celeste said Bright Harbor had arranged meals, transportation, nursing, and therapy during Evelyn's recovery. Most of that was true. Real employees had done real work. That truth gave her somewhere to hide the records that did not match. She pointed toward the blue card in Evelyn's hand. A patient's personal card is not the official chart. No, I said. It is a record made before anybody knew these claims would be questioned. Marcus stepped between us. He stopped speaking about whether the visits happened. He began speaking about what would happen if I kept asking. Bright Harbor had 24 employees. Payroll was due. The company had a buyer. Their house partly secured a short-term business loan. If the sale failed, he said nurses, aides, and office workers would suffer for paperwork they had not created. You are looking at one paragraph, he told me. I am looking at 24 paychecks. A paycheck does not make the paragraph true. You could let us correct it. What does signing this correct? Marcus looked toward Celeste before answering. She placed the silver tablet on the table and opened the agreement. It confirms the consulting relationship everyone understood already. I read the opening paragraph aloud. It said I had served as a clinical consultant beginning on the first day of August in the previous year. It said I had reviewed patient records, advised the agency on care decisions, and accepted responsibility for work performed under that arrangement. None of that had happened. Celeste scrolled to the signature page. We found the unsigned copy this morning. I touched the file information at the top of the screen. The document had not been found that morning. It had been created that morning. The author field carried the name of Bright Harbor's office administrator. The creation time was a little after 6. The agreement claimed to have existed for 14 months, but the file was younger than the peach cobbler cooling on the serving table. Celeste reached for the tablet. Electronic dates change when files are converted. They can, I said. That is why no single date proves the whole matter. But this date proves you cannot honestly call this an old document you just found. Marcus asked me to lower my voice. I had not raised it. What is the buyer asking you to prove? I said. Neither of them answered. I turned to Celeste. Why does this agreement say, I accepted responsibility for decisions made before I signed it? It is standard language. For a job I never held? You advised us. For 90 days. 2 years ago. The room had begun listening differently. People were no longer waiting for me to defend myself. They were reading the distance between each answer and the question that came before it. Celeste lifted the microphone again. This family does not need a public investigation. Isaiah is angry because we refuse to let him control Evelyn's recovery. Evelyn leaned forward. You asked him to sign. Celeste kept speaking. You are tired, Evelyn. Let Marcus handle this. Pastor Amos started toward the table, but another person stood first. Dana Hollis had been sitting in the back row beside the church library door. I had asked her to attend after Nia showed me the route schedules and after Marcus failed to meet the deadline I gave him. Dana carried no briefcase to the front. She brought one numbered envelope. I represent Mr. Mercer, she said. Before today, we preserved copies of the documents he was legally permitted to review. Those copies were secured before this agreement appeared in this room. Celeste stared at me. You brought a lawyer to Evelyn's luncheon? I brought counsel because someone was using my name. Dana placed the envelope beside the tablet. No one here has authority to declare that a crime occurred, she said. But no one should alter, replace, or destroy a clinical record that is under review. The room fell silent again. This time, Celeste was no longer holding the only version of the past. Dana left the envelope beside the tablet and stepped back. I did not want the room to become louder. I wanted it to become precise. Janice Park had sent me a list of 6 dates from the buyer's review. I could not discuss the other patients attached to those files. I could discuss Evelyn, and I could discuss my own whereabouts. I placed the first date on the table. On the 6th of August, Bright Harbor says I evaluated Evelyn in her living room. Celeste opened her mouth. I raised one finger. Evelyn was still admitted to rehabilitation. I was at the community clinic from 7:40 in the morning until 1:15 in the afternoon. Dr. Miriam Cole stood near the coffee urn. Our paper sign in log and patient schedule place Isaiah at the clinic, she said. A clinical signature is not decoration. It means a real person accepted responsibility for a real decision, Celeste said. That could still be a date correction. I placed the second date beside the first. Bright Harbor recorded a therapy visit at Evelyn's home while she was seated in the front row of a memorial service at New Covenant. The church program and photographs placed her there. The third date recorded a 48-minute nursing visit. Evelyn's doorbell camera showed an empty doorway throughout that period. The fourth date listed an employee whose route sheet placed her 30 miles away. The last 2 dates followed the same pattern. Each note described an impossible location. Celeste kept her voice level. Records can be entered under the wrong service date. One wrong date is an error, I said. 6 dates forming the same kind of impossibility require an explanation. Evelyn lifted her blue card, and no one signed here. That distinction mattered. A late note can describe care that truly happened. These notes described a patient, a clinician, and a place that could not have shared the same hour. The problem was no longer whether someone had typed the wrong date. The problem was that every correction kept moving responsibility toward my name without explaining the impossible care. The records did not merely arrive late. They described care happening where the patient was not. I opened the old consulting agreement. It was 3 pages long. The first page listed my work beginning in March of 2023. The last page ended the agreement 90 days later. My duties were fall prevention policy, staff education, and review of training materials. No patient evaluations, no care orders, no certifications. I placed the final email from that contract beside it. The email instructed Bright Harbor to remove my name, license information, and signature from active materials when the agreement ended. Celeste had answered with one sentence. Understood. We will remove all consultant identifiers after the close date. I opened my brown pocket calendar. On the day Celeste asked for my scanned signature, I wrote why I sent it. Marcus stared at the page. The entry said the file was for one credentialing packet only. Dana showed a printed comparison. The same image appeared on later certifications, down to a break in the final stroke. Celeste said, A shared signature file does not prove who placed it. No, I said. It proves I did not sign each document the way those records claim. She looked toward Marcus. He looked at the floor. The signature did not establish my participation. It established that somebody possessed an image created for another purpose and used it after permission ended. I returned to the agreement. Its language mattered more than its title. The document said I had served Bright Harbor from the first day of August in the previous year. It said I reviewed clinical files and accepted responsibility for decisions made during that period. It also said I confirmed that the work had already been performed. I turned the tablet so Marcus could see the creation time. This file was made shortly after 6 this morning, Marcus said. The language came from an older draft. Then show us the older draft. Celeste answered for him. We do not have to produce company files in a church hall. You do not, I said. But you brought this one here and called it proof against me. I read the final paragraph. If I signed, I would not merely agree to help them in the future. I would confirm that I had already supervised records carrying my name. The agreement was not designed to correct Evelyn's account. It was designed to create a past in which I had authorized the documents now under review. Marcus spoke quietly. Dad, nobody is asking you to lie. I looked at him. The first sentence asks me to say I held a job I did not hold. The paper beside my plate was not a forgotten agreement. It was an attempt to manufacture authority after the records already existed. Celeste set down the microphone and spoke directly to me. You know what happens if the buyer walks away. I did. Janice had explained that the buyer selected a sample of clinical files. My name appeared in 14. Janice had asked for proof that I was a legitimate consultant during the period in question. I had already sent my answer. I was not. The buyer expected supporting documentation before 9 o'clock Monday morning. Until then, the transaction was on hold. Marcus moved closer. If the sale collapses, payroll is in danger. Our house secures the bridge loan. 24 employees may lose work because you will not sign one agreement. You are asking one person to accept responsibility for records he did not create, so a buyer will release money. I am asking you to help us fix a company that still serves people. You cannot protect real employees by making a false person responsible for their records. Celeste's calm expression tightened. She said Bright Harbor had grown too quickly. She said reimbursements arrived late. She said employees sometimes completed notes after exhausting shifts because patients still needed care even when paperwork fell behind. Some of that might have been true. It did not explain visits in impossible places. It did not explain my signature. It did not explain a contract created that morning. The sale was not separate from the accusation. It was the reason the accusation had to happen before Monday. I had one final piece of evidence. It involved Marcus. I had long believed being his father meant giving him one more private chance. That belief had already delayed the record. So let me ask you this. How far should a parent protect an adult child's reputation when that protection leaves patients, workers, and another family member carrying the risk? I did not want the answer from strangers in the room. I wanted Marcus to answer with what he had done. Dana handed me a printed email. Marcus had sent it to Celeste 2 days earlier. Will the backdated consultant agreement be enough to clean up the file before Monday? Marcus looked at Celeste. She did not reach for him. I placed a photograph beside the email. Nia had taken it while photographing a route log after the office scanner jammed. The edge of Marcus's yellow legal pad had appeared in the frame. Dad consultant agreement. Evelyn family pressure. Monday, buyer answer. I did not say where the photograph came from. I did not say Nia's name. I asked Marcus the questions Dana and I had prepared. When did you learn my signature had been used without permission? He rubbed both hands over his face. After the buyer asked about the files. When did you learn the agreement was being dated backward? He looked at the document. Earlier this week. Why did you write family pressure before I ever saw it? Marcus stared at the yellow page. The room gave him time. He finally said, because I knew you would not sign if you thought we were blaming you. That was not a full confession. It was enough to end the story that the confrontation had happened by accident. Celeste said, Marcus was trying to keep this family from losing everything. Evelyn answered before I could. You used me to do it. Marcus turned to her. Aunt Evelyn, we were trying to protect your care. My care, she said slowly, does not need a false signature. Marcus had not designed every clinical note. He had known the agreement was false, known the pressure was planned, and chosen to place it before me anyway. He looked at me. You taught me not to let one mistake destroy a family. This is not one mistake, I said. It is every chance you had to stop after you knew. I told him I had submitted a report with the documents Evelyn had authorized me to share. I had asked for the records to be preserved. I would answer every lawful question truthfully. I did not call my son a criminal. I did not know what investigators would conclude. I knew only what the record already showed. Someone near the wall asked how many other patients were involved. I will not discuss their names or their care, I said. They are not evidence for this room to consume. Another person asked whether Celeste would lose the company. That decision does not belong to me. I could have announced the amount of the sale. I could have described the loan against their house, or the money Marcus expected to receive. Those facts explained pressure. They did not need to become weapons. Celeste lifted the microphone again. This family is being destroyed because Isaiah refuses to understand how healthcare businesses survive. Evelyn held out her hand. Pastor Amos switched off the microphone. This room will not become a courtroom, he said, and Evelyn will not become an exhibit. Evelyn reached across the table with the hand she had been training for weeks. Her fingers closed around the agreement. The paper trembled, but she did not release it. She folded it once. Then she placed it in Dana's hand. This was supposed to be the day I came home, she said. I would like it back. Pastor Amos nodded toward the kitchen volunteers. The serving line opened again. Someone uncovered the peach cobbler. I sat beside my sister. For the first time that afternoon, nobody asked her to prove she understood what was happening. They waited for her to decide what happened next. Pastor Amos asked everyone to put away their phones. A few people had already begun recording when Celeste took the microphone. He waited until the screens disappeared before allowing anyone to leave the tables. No one follows Evelyn, he said. No one surrounds Marcus or Celeste. If you work for Bright Harbor, you do not owe this room an explanation. That mattered. Inside the hall, Evelyn had asked for a small serving of cobbler. She ate 3 careful bites with the same hand Celeste had treated as evidence of helplessness. Nobody applauded. Nobody needed to. Pastor Amos sat across from her and discussed the choir schedule, giving her time to finish each answer without supplying a single word for her. 3 Bright Harbor employees were sitting near the kitchen doors. One was an aide who had helped Evelyn bathe during her first week home. Another had brought groceries when a therapist canceled. They looked frightened, not guilty. Real care had happened inside a company that also held records no one could explain. Those truths could exist at the same time. Celeste left through the side entrance with Dana's warning still hanging in the room. Marcus remained behind until most people had returned to their plates. He found me in the hallway outside the fellowship hall. The old choir photographs lined the wall between us. Evelyn appeared in nearly every one, standing in front with one hand raised. Marcus kept his voice low. Can you withdraw the report? No. Give us 1 week. We can review the files, refund anything that should not have been billed, and make this right. You cannot repair a record by changing it after you learn somebody preserved the first version. We are going to lose the company. That may happen. Our house may go with it. I know. He looked toward the fellowship hall. Do you still see me as your son? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Marcus waited as though he expected another sentence to erase the first one. I gave him the only help I could give, honestly. Get your own lawyer. Preserve every email, schedule, and original note. Do not ask an employee to rewrite anything. Do not contact Nia about what she may have seen. His face changed when I said her name. I had not used it inside the fellowship hall. I would not explain her role to him in a hallway. You brought her into this, he said. No, the adults brought this to the place where she works. He left without saying goodbye. A minute later, my phone vibrated. Nia had sent one question. Did you tell them it was me? No, I wrote. Dana will contact you privately. You will not be asked to stand in front of the church. Her next message took longer. If mom and dad cannot pay tuition, I may have to stop school. I sat on the wooden bench beneath Evelyn's choir photographs. I wanted to promise I would replace every dollar. That would have been another frightened adult trying to purchase a fast ending. We will find a path, I wrote. It will not require you to buy your future with silence. That night, Evelyn and I returned to her house. We placed her rehabilitation box on the dining table. Dana had given us a separate evidence envelope for the disputed records. We removed those copies from the papers Evelyn used each day, but we did not destroy them. The false pages still mattered. They simply did not belong on top. Evelyn placed her real care plan first. The front page listed the goal she had chosen before leaving rehabilitation. Walk 32 steps from the living room chair to the porch rail without another person holding my arm. She smoothed the page with her left hand. Tomorrow, she said, we practice. I closed the box. For once, the next thing our family needed was not another explanation of the past. It was one honest step toward the front door. There was no arrest the next morning. No investigator appeared at Bright Harbor with handcuffs. No judge announced that our family had reached the end of anything. The buyer suspended the sale. The question claims went into review. Lawyers instructed everyone to preserve records. Employees were told not to change notes, schedules, or files. That was all I knew for certain. Marcus called twice during those weeks. I did not discuss evidence with him. I told him I loved him, and that love would no longer include changing the facts before he faced them. 5 weeks later, Evelyn stood beside her living room chair with the blue gold card tucked into the pocket of her sweater. Outside, November wind moved dry leaves across the porch. I stood on her right side. "Do not hold my arm," she said. "I remember. You almost did at church. I remember that too." She smiled, then placed one hand on her cane. Evelyn had spent years teaching children to hold a note until the conductor released them. Recovery had taught the rest of us a different kind of patience. We had to let her finish an action without rushing forward just because helping would make us feel useful. She took the first step. I counted quietly. At step 11, her right foot dragged. At step 19, she stopped and breathed. At step 26, I moved closer. She looked at me. I moved back. Naya waited outside near the porch rail. She had reduced her course load and found a small workforce scholarship through the community college. It would take her longer to finish, but the plan belonged to her. She had not returned to Bright Harbor. She had not spoken to anyone at church about the photographs. Dana had arranged for her to provide what she knew privately, with counsel present. Evelyn reached the doorway. 30, 31. On the last step, she lifted her cane over the threshold and placed her foot on the porch boards. 32. Nia covered her mouth. Evelyn turned slowly and held out her hand. Nia crossed the porch and took it. "I am sorry," Nia whispered. Evelyn shook her head. "You did not make the record, but they are my parents. The truth belongs to the people who made it," Evelyn said. "The shame does not have to." She pulled Nia close. No one asked the girl to forgive anyone. No one asked her to defend them either. Evelyn removed the blue card from her pocket. Her handwriting shook as she wrote the date on the back. Then she handed me my brown calendar. For years, I had used those pages to remember where people had been, what work had been done, and which claims could not be true. That afternoon, I wrote one line. Evelyn walked 32 steps without anyone holding her arm. It was the first entry in months that did not protect me from a false past. It preserved a true beginning.